All right, welcome to our lesson. We're going to be taking a look today at estimating square roots of non-perfect squares. We're going to be building off of what we've done with perfect squares and looking at square roots as well of those perfect squares. And so we're going to take a look at how can we use our perfect squares in order to solve for our non-perfect squares. So let's just do a little reminder here. So we know that the square root of a perfect number will always be a whole number. Okay, so here's a couple examples. We have the square root of 144. Well, from what we've done in the past or what we may remember, we know that the square root of 144 is 12. Okay, so this is one that we've done. Now, again, as a class, we've looked at the first 20 perfect squares. So we can even look at something like 324. Well, what's the square root of 324? It's 18. Good. I know you had it on your tip of your tongue, or some of you maybe even showed it out. It's awesome. Okay, but it's good. We know this stuff. We know these, and again, we need to make sure we practice to keep up to date with them. Now, here's the next one. What about the square root of 300? Well, the square root of 300. That is... Oh, man. The square root of 300 is not a perfect square. Okay, so what it tells us is that this one, okay, the square root of 300 is not going to end up as a whole number. It's going to be an irrational number. Now, an irrational number is any number that does not end nicely. It has an endless number of decimals, and they don't repeat. They just keep on going. Okay, so that's what an irrational number means. And so the square root of 300 is an irrational number, and we don't know the exact value for it. Well, we can use a calculator and we could find that the square root of 300 is something. I'm not going to do it with us right now because we're looking at estimating. So we're going to do this all without calculators. So for this lesson, we are doing all of our square roots without calculators. Yes, that is right. No calculators. All right, so let's take a look at how can we find the square root of 300 without using any calculators. And we're going to use our first 20 perfect squares in order to find this. So let's take a look. Square root of 300, right? Oh, other way, down there. Okay, there we go. Okay, I got to figure out my webcam here. Okay, down there. Now, the square root of 300, first thing what we're going to do is we're going to draw a number line with two benchmarks. Now, I know everybody loves number lines, and that's okay. But we are going to draw a number line. It looks a little bit like this. We're just going to take two benchmarks, okay? One at one side, one at the other side, and that's it. Okay? Now, what those benchmarks are going to be is that they're going to be the perfect squares that are right below and right above the desired root. Well, what are the perfect squares right below and right above 300? First of all, we have 289. Okay? That's a perfect square. It's the one just below 300. And we also have the square root of 324, which is just above 300. So these are our two, and 300 is going to fit somewhere in between, which is going to help us to estimate, or it's going to help us to come up with our answer. All right, next, we want to know what are the square roots of these perfect squares. So 289 is 17, and 324 is 18. So now we know that the square root of 300 is going to be somewhere between 17 on this side and 18 on this side here. Okay, so it's somewhere in between there. It's going to be 17 point something. Now again, we're going to look for an estimate. So we're going to usually go to one extra decimal place. So 17 point and then one decimal place. If you really want to do two decimal places, you gladly can. But for the sake of this lesson, I am looking for 17 point and then give the 10th value in there. All right, now we need to estimate along the line the desired, or where the desired root is located, or where the square root is located. So let's take a look. Is it here or there or there or here? Somewhere in between. All right, we're going to line up right about there, and we're going to say that that is an estimate as to where it is. Now, 300 is definitely closer to 289 than it is to 324. So we're going to put it a little bit closer to the 289. And therefore, we need to know that our estimate has to be a little bit closer to 17 rather than 18. Okay, so that's something that we have to be aware of as we do that. So now we're going to, based on the location, we're going to estimate the square root. Give it a shot. What do you think it is? 17.3, 17.4. It looks like it's definitely below 17.5. It's probably not 17.1 or 2, right? Okay, so based on where we've estimated, mine estimate is about 17.4. Okay, now how close was I? It doesn't matter. We could try. So you could grab a calculator, you could type in square root of 300, and you could figure out what is the value. Okay, it's going to be somewhere in that neighborhood, right? It's going to be 17.3 something, 17.4-ish, roughly. Okay, so this is just a way that we can go through and figure out or estimate what our square roots are. Now, once you've got the estimate, we could check on the calculator, but it's nice to kind of give us a bit of an idea. Reminder, for this whole lesson, you will not be allowed to use a calculator to find the square root. If you want to double check them, you can, but I want to see the number line and I want to see how you have estimated. All right, let's look at a couple more examples. So let's look. What's the square root of 5? Or at least we're going to estimate the square root of 5. So what do? Well, we take a look at a number line. So here's our number line, and 4 and 9 are our two square roots. So 4 is on this side here and 9 is on this side here. And the square root of 5 is going to be somewhere in between there. It means that the square root of 5 is going to be somewhere between 2 and 3. Okay, so somewhere in between there, 2 point something. Now, I'm going to say that it's roughly about here. Okay, again, that's an estimate. I didn't measure this out. I would expect that if you were to be working on these and doing these examples yourself, I would expect that you would also be estimating and getting as close as you can, but it doesn't have to be exact. I'm not expecting you to go and measure out exactly. But in this case here, it's a little closer to 2, so I'm going to say it's about 2.2. Now that little squiggle line that you see, okay, it's a twiddle mark. It means approximate. I believe we've seen it before in class. If not, we'll see it some more yet. It's an approximate. It means that it's close to that. And again, that's all that I'm asking for here. I want you to come up with something close. 2.2, really good. I would say it's a really good estimate. Maybe it's not exact, but it's really good. If you say 2.9, that's a little bit off. If you're saying 3.2, that's way off, okay? We know it's between 2 and 3, so we have to be taking a look at that. All right, let's try another one. Give this one a shot. What's the square root of 75? Or estimate the square root of 75. Now, if you want to pause the video a little bit and try to, do a little bit of a practice with this, go for it. Gladly pause right now. Let's take a look. So 75 is not a perfect square. It is between the square roots of 64 and 81. Okay, those are perfect squares. 64, the square root of 64 is 8. The square root of 81 is 9. So it's going to be in there, between there somewhere. Now, where is it located? Well, I would say it's located a little bit closer to 81 than 64. So it's about 11 away from 64 and 6 away from 81. So a little bit closer to there. Probably a little bit above 8.5. Now, I'm going to put in that the square root is about 8.7. Okay, that's going to be my estimate. Now, again, when I'm coming up with these estimates, because I want you to see how close you actually are, they are the actual answers, but you should be using it as an estimate. If you have 8.6 or even 8.8 or 8.7, that's a good estimate, okay? 8.2, not a good estimate, okay? You should have it above the 8.5 range. If you're saying 9 point something, not a very good estimate, okay? It's between 8 and 9. We need to be careful about those perfect squares. Let's try another one. What's the square root of 193? Gladly pause the video a little bit again if you want to try it out. And then I will come back in a minute. All right, so welcome back now. What is the square root of 193? Well, we need to know our perfect squares again, right? What's the perfect squares right around 193? Okay, 193 is really close to 196 and between 169 and 196. So our square root of this has got to be somewhere between 13 and 14. Let's place it. Well, it's really, really close to 196. So it's like somewhere over here, like really, really close. Okay. And so therefore it's going to be really, really close to 14. It's probably going to be something like 13.9 or even maybe 13.95 if you want to try to get really accurate. But again, all I want is one extra decimal place. Okay, so just go one extra decimal place. 13.9 is completely fine. Okay, for you just to leave it right there. Okay, and that's what I'm going to recommend. Please don't go any farther. You do not need to go any farther. All right, so there is our next one. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, another example, give it a shot. What about 350? Okay, welcome back here. Let's take a look. What's 350 going to be? Well, now we're getting much closer to that 400, so we're going to be looking at our top of our perfect squares that we have memorized, or that we should have memorized at this point. And so we're going to use 324 and 361. Okay, square root of 324 is 18, and the square root of 361 is 19, and 350 falls somewhere in between there. So it's going to have an estimate of 18 point something. Okay, it's somewhere in between 18 and 19. Now, I would say it's right about there. Again, did I measure? No. I'm estimating as well with where it is, and this estimate, again, from what I can see, I'm going to say that it's somewhere around 18.7. It's about where I've put it. Now, if you're saying 18.6 or 18.8, again, depending on how you put it on your number line will make a difference as well, but around 18.7 is a good estimate. And let's see, yep, that's what I've got there as well. So you should have something around that number. Okay, something around that number. Again, 18.2, not a good estimate. It should be above 18.5 because 350 is definitely closer to 361 than it is 324. So please make sure to be as accurate as possible with this. Do a good job estimating. Remember that estimating is not just a random guess or a try or throw a number in the air. No, an estimate is using the values that we have, using the knowledge that we have to come up with a good guess or an educated guess in this matter. We're not just throwing a number out there. Be sure to come up with a good estimate, okay? Do a good guess, okay, based on the knowledge that we already have. All right, so that is the end of this lesson here. You can now work on the assignment. Reminder with the assignment, be sure to draw out a number line with two benchmarks. Don't just say that the square root of 350 is approximately 18.7. I need to see the number line with the two benchmarks. What is the value of the benchmarks and how are we going to estimate where that is? Okay. For the time being, just do the whole number estimates. We're going to look at decimals in a following lesson, but for now, just look at the whole numbers. Thank you for watching.